So welcome all, joy to be here. We're discussing why is design moving to the C-suite? So why are more designers leading companies? Why are more designers in the strategic heart of companies? And I think we have a remarkable group here together. And we're going to try and, through the conversation, get at some answers to this question, what we think is going on. If we look at just surveys of companies, recently John Maeda of Kleiner Perkins, Caulfield and Bryars did a design and tech report, and their executive surveyed, 80% said that in 2016 the primary source of competitiveness is customer experience. And about 4 years ago, only half that said the same. So this is speaking to some kind of macro trend in this area. I don't know, Karri, you're in a key role at Airbnb. So.
Yeah, I think definitely there's like different ways to look at this issue, or like not the issue, but this opportunity. I think one is definitely the macro trend of the markets. So I think generally if you look back in the early days of computers and internet, it was pretty easy to come up with an idea that like I want to sell dog food online, or I want to put an email online, and there wasn't much competition. But I think generally when markets go mature and there's more companies doing things, you will have more competition from other people, and you're still competing often for the same users. So I think generally like any market always gets more and more sophisticated, and that way I think design is one of those key things that can set you apart from the competition. And also in practice, design is often finding and creating a good product, so that usually works out well if you do it well. Yeah, so I think like definitely like I see it much more in now the Silicon Valley that most companies or founders I talk to, they always ask me about design, and they want design earlier on, and a lot of companies want to do it more and more.
And Airbnb, famously, one of your co-founders is a designer coming from Rhode Island School of Design. And
yes.
How does that show in the culture of the company?
So 2 of the 3 founders are designers, and I think it shows a lot in the company. So every project, I think since the beginning of the company, always starts with design, and also often like ends with design. So any new product or feature we do, there's always designers in the room first, and we are working to, sometimes we see a problem through the user research, that like something needs to be improved. Sometimes it's like really new ideas of this is a new product we want to do, and design's task is to find the best way to execute it. And then the engineer joins in later, but the design is always in the middle of creating these experiences.
I think it may not be so well known, but recent surveys of like the top 25 funded startup companies, over a third were co-founded or are led by a designer or a person with design background. And certainly mergers and acquisitions in the design companies. Fjord was acquired by Accenture a while back. You're perhaps early in this trend. How do you see that? You're seeing a lot of companies engaging with design as your clients. So,
So 2 thoughts really on the answer to why design is moving to the C-suite. And like you say, we do see a lot in Fjord now, working with Accenture's clients in 20 plus locations of the world. So we do have access and exposure to a lot of large organizations, and design is absolutely at the C-suite there. So 2 thoughts. One is basic competitiveness. So the quotes you, or the sort of stats that you talked about, you simply need to invest in design to even be competitive, to even kind of get to the minimum benchmark that's required to have a minimum viable or minimum lovable product or service. And that applies to the big companies for sure, but it also applies to the small companies. So when I talk to people in the Valley, then 10 years ago or 5 years ago, they talked about their engineering team. Now they talk about the engineering and design team. So clearly the mentality has changed, that design is now central, not just in big business in the C-suite, but also in startups. So basic competitiveness is answer one. Answer two for me is that especially the large companies are facing what I would call a crisis of innovation. So they feel like the startups have it all sorted out. So the startups out here, you're scaring the big companies, and they think that they're going to come and eat. You're going to come and eat their lunch. You're nibbling at the profitable edges of their business. And they're frustrated with their own organization's inability to innovate. They tried to innovate through technology, didn't quite work. They tried to innovate by cutting costs and making their business leaner. And to some extent, it gave them some advantages. But this now seems to, design is like the third way of addressing innovation. And it's proving results. So the business results are there to see. And that's why we have stats like the ones you mentioned in the beginning.
I think if we move from the private sector C-suite to cities and government. So Helsinki recently, for those that don't know, Helsinki is, on my knowledge, the only city in the world with a chief design officer, who is Anne. So give it up for Helsinki, first of all. And then a question, why did Helsinki decide to create a role of chief design officer?
Well, I think that it all goes back to the World Design Capital in Helsinki 2012 that opened a door for design in a large scale. And I think this was the ultimate outcome of that year throughout the years, because it takes a lot of, courage in a very conventional organization to open up a role like this. And I'm very happy to say that I'm not sitting in a design department. No, there is no such thing in the city, but I'm sitting in the Office of Strategic Design and Development. So it shows clearly that the design has come to the top level in the concern of the city. But I think that when you ask why, one reason is that there is a bigger trend or development going on, that all the organizations, whether they are big or small, they are facing more and more today these unknown unknowns. So nobody really knows how the future is going to look like and what kind of tomorrow we are facing. But designers, they can illustrate, they can use their imagination to say what's next. And they are very sensitive to sort of sense the sentiment of the coming era. So I think that in the future we are going to see more and more strategic design, whether it's in companies, corporations, or public organizations. And that is because of the role of designers to understand what is next. Now we have talking about that designers, that they can connect the user and use the empathy. But I think that the ultimate gift as a creative person is your imagination, and that helps us to foresee something and explain it to others.
Can I,
Please.
Can I add to that a bit? I totally agree with that, and that sort of speaks also to that need for organizations, but also cities, governments, and so on, to innovate and define their role in tomorrow's world. And one of the best ways of using design is actually as a facilitator of that collaboration or co-creation between different departments and different entities. So many of the large organizations, many of the large governments and so on struggle with essentially their businesses being siloed. And people are sort of stuck in their habits within their parts of the organization. You chuck in design there, and design team there, and they can really bring people together and facilitate a discussion and co-creation to create that future.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point because I just recently read a saying by Dan Hill. He said that strategic design role is stewardship, and that has nothing to do with design thinking. It's more like management issue, and I think that there are silos also in public organizations, and now there is a major change in city scale in Helsinki to change the organization, the leadership model, and creating new strategy. And design can do a lot covering and putting together those fields and showing somehow the way too.
Yeah. And also, so I like that you mentioned the kind of like the designer's sensitivity to new things. And I think that's something that leaders can use in their companies. I think for any designer that kind of the vision of the future and the vision of the company is really important. And so if you can like give that to the designers, they can almost do your work for you. They can like figure it out. So please like use your designers to also influence the thinking, but also to like vision the future.
I think one skill that good designers have is actually the thinking happens through the building of things. So you, rather than talk about a direction of a company, you show that this is what it might mean, which typically takes the conversation further a lot quicker because you can actually point, use, and you get clearer through the making of it.
I totally agree. We see one of the biggest values to the C-suite in large organizations being the ability to actually visualize something that is often abstract and theoretical in a very concrete way. So as designers, we actually have the ability, the gift, you could say, to apply. And not every science, not every practice has that. So you can both facilitate the discussion, you can innovate, you can dream up a vision for the future, but then you can also find ways of visualizing it and making it concrete and showing what it might look like in someone's hand or in someone's home. And that's super powerful. I totally agree with that.
There's one more issue I want to raise here because due to this new role, I have got quite many invitations to speak around Europe. And so I have met quite a lot of young designers, service designers, social innovation designers, etc. And what struck me is actually that designers don't want to just stay designers anymore. They want to influence. They want to have an impact. Up to the level that one designer in Berlin said to me 2 weeks ago that I want to go to politics. And I said, okay, how come? Because during my past 30 plus years in architecture and design, nobody in the creative field has said that I want to go to politics. So he explained that he can't see any other way to have an impact, to change things. Towards that kind of future that he can foresee. So he definitely wants to go politics. But I can also see other signals that designers, they want to take this action. They want to be in command of something, some kind of transformation that they can see that might save the world or whatever how they formulate it. But I think this is a momentum. It has been quite a long while that design and architecture has been talking about politics. That was 1970s, I think, last time. So I'm very interested in following that line. What will happen actually when designers really go to the politics?
So will the next...
This is a little bit provocative.
I don't know. I wish there had been some good designers on the Remain side of Brexit, personally. But maybe the next great populist movement will be better designed yet. Not like they seem much help. But given that, so design as a discipline, because it, as a practice, a set of disciplines, one should say, it often is... in different areas, falls a bit between the cracks, that gets institutionalized. So we have a classic design in those disciplines, architecture, industrial design, interaction design, user interfaces, now systems, more data, the interface with machine learning. So design is moving to the C-suite, but are designers ready? And what skills do you think are we training designers in the right way? And maybe starting with you.
Yeah, I think I think there's still a lot to learn, and but I think in general designers are, in a way, well equipped. I think for one, I think anyone who does design always has to present their work. They have to talk about why they're doing it, why they're basically, as a designer, you always have to explain everything, like every decision you made, because someone is going to ask about it. So I think that way you have to think about every project you make. You have to really think about it, why you're making it, how do you make it, what's the strategy, getting it buy-in from whoever, the clients or whoever. So I think there's in the designer skill set, there's already a lot designers can use. And I think generally also, I think designers see many things also systematically, that you can think also company as a design problem itself, like how the organization is set up, how the tables are set up in a room, anything. I often see all kinds of things in the world and then kind of have this vision of okay, this could be better. I would want to fix it. I think that reaction to politics is one of them. We could have much better politics if the systems would be better or there would be better ways of doing things. So I think designers are definitely ready. I think probably there's still a lack of role models. So I think Airbnb is a good way in that regard, that the CEO is a designer and shows other tech companies that you can run a tech company as a designer.
So my perspective is that no one actually, designers included, are quite ready for tomorrow, because we don't know what tomorrow will be. And therefore what you need to be ready for as an organization is to offer a workplace where people can continuously learn and evolve. And as a designer or any type of practitioner, you need to be curious and hungry to learn all the time. So don't think that you come into a job with the full package of knowledge that you will then apply for your career. That's the old model. The new model is that you get a starter package in education and then you constantly learn. In terms of how designers are evolving, I think there's two dimensions in which design is evolving in a critical way to be relevant in the C-suite. One is around technology and data, that you pointed out for obvious reasons, because everything is underpinned with technology and data nowadays. And the other one is business. So in the past, designers were not ready to engage with business as readily as they need to today, and therefore understand how to connect with the business aspect of large and small organizations is critical. So there's the two aspects that are really important. And maybe a third then becomes the ability to actually engage in civil issues and conversations and address political problems. But that for me is almost like the next frontier.
Yeah, it's the next one. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I think to that point, often at the MIT Media Lab, where I've been a director's fellow, there's a very specific emphasis on design and critical evaluation of systems as a whole, and to which organizations are one example. But really this perspective that you design it as a participant in the system, not as someone outside looking from above. And that skill of empathy is something I think designers are, even in a traditional sense, ready to go. If you, for the city of Helsinki, what does a week as Chief Design Officer look like?
Well, talking and talking. I mean, I'm like a talking head nowadays. But I hope that this is temporary only, nothing against talking. But what I really do now, or have been doing during these past 90 or 100 days I have been in the position, is actually I have created my Mapa Mundi, meaning in terms of cartography, that you have to put yourself into the map, global map, and you have to recognize the other players. And on the other hand, there is, in old cartography in China, there was a thing that when those who created the maps didn't know some areas, some sea areas, they put there the title, "Here be dragons." So I'm now checking what are the future dragons, because they might be gentle ones, you know, opportunities, or they might be nasty, wicked ones that are quite challenging. So I'm now creating the map at this point. So talking and discussing with people in different organizations and different countries has been very eye-opening to understand where design is heading for. And for sure, this kind of soft activism or political involvement, that is not today or tomorrow, but I can see it's coming there. But in terms of thinking these systems, I think that one benefit also that we can see that designers, that they hold, is this holistic approach. Quite many of designers, they can see big picture and then can zoom to the small scale and up again and down again. And that is quite helpful also.
Yeah, I've always thought that that's, for me, that ability to go between the high-level vision or strategy and the detail is actually maybe the most important sign of a good and experienced designer.
Yeah.
This, I think we can all concur on that. It's kind of a bounce between the high level and very detailed expression of it so that people understand, then you go back up. I think to this audience seems very well versed in design. I think there's still an issue about people discovering what design practice really is. It's not about making things polished and shiny, but understanding the way we interact with things, and through the role models that's spreading, but still ways to go with that. I would say that based on this discussion today and the trends, the companies that are more competitive are moving design into C-suite positions, are involving design in strategic decision making at the, like you said it very well, you said it's there at the beginning and it's there at the end. And the companies that do not do that, I believe, do so at their own peril. So thank you very much for the conversation today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.